Thank you. I apologize for being late. Pulled in other directions that kept me from getting, unfortunately, to hear my two previous colleagues' comments for the last bit, on which I'd like to pick up on. When we talk about the Chinese Communist Party and the unrestricted warfare it is waging against the United States, has been for decades, we have to try to get our head around how comprehensive is the approach to that warfare. It is literally a no stone left unturned, all out, unrestricted effort to achieve the goal stated frequently by Xi Jinping and other Chinese Communist Party officials, which is the destruction of the United States. Its elimination as the impediment that it is today to the ultimate objectives of the CCP, which are, of course, domination of the entire world. This all has huge implications, of course, for people of faith, whether they're Tibetans, whether they're Uyghur Muslims, whether they're Falun Gong, whether they're Christians, and not just in China, but everywhere. Because what the Chinese Communist Party is doing to people of faith in China is simply a foretaste of what they will do to people of faith, and everybody else for that matter, worldwide, if they are successful in achieving the domination they seek. So I wanted to pick up on your last point about TikTok. Because it's hard for us to get our head around how this silly app with these ridiculous videos, and forgive me if I'm speaking to people in a way that they find offensive because they love those videos, but let's be honest. How many of us can actually, as I say, get our head around the idea that this is an instrument of unrestricted warfare against our people? And honestly, as it happens, just this morning, I had a chance to talk to Alex Marlow, who is the editor of Breitbart, about an article that appeared on their pages, I think last night, about TikTok. In the context of the fact that the United States military is having acute difficulties, with the possible exception of the Marines, I understand, as usual. Virtually every one of the services is having difficulty meeting their recruiting goals. I mean, very acute difficulties meeting their recruiting goals. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that over time, and probably not too much time, that has a hugely deleterious effect on the United States military. So what are the recruiters trying to do to adjust their ability to find, identify, and become close to, shall we put it, candidates for service in the United States Uniformed Services? They're using TikTok. They're resorting to a technique they know can help them reach people of a certain age who they know they have a shot at bringing into the military. Well, guess what? As an instrument of information and unrestricted warfare, TikTok is going to take any data that the United States military is able to garner about these kids and use it to their advantage as well. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot is the truth of that. But my point is not to overstate the significance of TikTok in isolation, but rather to endorse your point, which is this is simply one of any numbers of examples of what the Chinese are doing to penetrate our society, to gain influence as well as access, but beyond access, influence with elites. And whether in this case they're seemingly an unlikely elite, just kids basically, some of them not even properly out of high school, but people that they can somehow get their hooks into. Or whether they're the top politicians in our country, who they're using other unrestricted warfare, or as they call it, elite capture techniques, to gain, again, access to and influence with. A particular concern, I have to tell you, is the success that the elite capture operation of the Chinese Communist Party has been having with the people who control trillions of dollars of American investors. The most notorious of whom is a fellow by the name of Larry Fink of BlackRock, the largest investment house on Wall Street, with some $10 trillion under management. Larry Fink and his team at BlackRock, which, by the way, includes among its alumni Brian Dees, who is the director of the National Economic Council in the White House, and Wally Adeyemo, the Deputy Secretary of the United States Treasury Department, and now Tom Donilon, former National Security Advisor to Barack Obama, who has just been appointed by the State Department to be the chairman of the Foreign Policy Advisory Board for the State Department. All of these are people who are, like Larry Fink, committed to enabling the Chinese Communist Party to be a vastly more serious threat to freedom and to our country than any we've ever confronted before. So as to the policies that we have to be pursuing to try to change this pattern of, well, to put a fine point on it, treason. Treason on the part of American elites. And I'm not talking about those kids at TikTok. I'm talking about people who are sleeping with the enemy, literally. I'm talking about people who are personally enriching themselves with Chinese deals, which I'm sorry to say includes the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And I'm talking about people like Larry Fink, and not to single him out for special treatment. Vanguard is as bad, State Street is as bad, Ray Dalio, Steve Schwartzman. These are people who are betraying our country and enabling our enemy. And in the process, they are making it decidedly more likely that these enemies of ours in China will not only use unrestricted economic and political and information and influence and espionage and other techniques of unrestricted warfare, but they will use kinetic means, including, by the way, biological warfare, to destroy us, the old-fashioned way. In fact, tomorrow we have a new book coming out on this subject of biological warfare by the Chinese Communist Party against the United States. It's entitled, "The CCP is at War with America." This is not a coming attraction, folks. This is happening. So, policies, we have to stop, for God's sake, enabling the enemies of our country. And whether that means adopting policies that are enriching them, conducive to their buildup of their military, or simply the success of hollowing out our economy, or gaining access to our proprietary information, or countless other means by which the Chinese are advancing their cause. It must start with a recognition that this Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, is America's mortal enemy, seeks nothing less than our destruction, and must be countered in every way we can, being every bit as creative about it as they are, insisting on absolute, at a minimum, reciprocity in any benefit that they get from dealing with us. And more to the point, putting us on what I believe is absolutely necessary now, a war footing for contending with the various threats that the Chinese Communist Party represents, including the military one that is now upon us. So I'd be happy to talk more about it in the questions.
All right, Frank, I have a question for you. You talked about those American elites possibly committed treason, and it's really hard to stop these people. What about having the private sector taking the lead of, they have business, interests to go against China nowadays? What about letting them taking the lead? Is that possible?
I think it's not only possible, it's absolutely necessary. There is a basic problem for these money managers, and that is it's not their money.
I'm sorry, Frank, because we only have 3 minutes left, and I want to ask Jennifer one more question. So you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's not their money, they're their clients' money, and I think if their clients tell them, we don't want our money going to the company, the country, the party that has killed millions of us around the world, a million of us here at home. This is what we call a mad as hell campaign from the old movie Network, where somebody got up and said, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That's what the American people whose money is being invested in our enemy need to say.
Okay.